Apple shares around $520 this morning. Could they go to 1,000 at some point in the, well, in the future, of course, right? Can't go in the past. That's what we're talking about. Jack Hough from SmartMoney is here. All right, Jack. Did you write this just to get eyeballs? Do you really think there's a chance?
How dare you accuse me of just trying to get people
I'm
to
a
read
cynic.
a story?
It's a fault of mine. Is this a legitimate thing we're talking about here? Apple at $1,000?
If you're the biggest company in America already, can you double in size is the question that the story tries to answer. Now, the stock has doubled 5 times over the past decade, and people aren't buying it for the dividend. You know, they're buying it because they want to make fast money.
There is no dividend.
There is no. So what are the chances? So if you know, Apple is closing in on about $500 billion market value, for the high 400s right now. There's no precedent for a company getting to $900 billion, right? But Microsoft, back during the dot-com stock bubble, did get up to $600 billion, and if you adjust that for inflation, it's about $800 billion. Keep in mind, Microsoft controlled 90% of the market or more for operating systems back then. Apple only controls about a quarter of the market for smartphones, quarter of the market for mobile computers if you put laptops and tablets together. So arguably, there's a lot more market share for Apple to gain. You've got emerging markets, tremendous growth
China,
there.
I mean, the iPhone is certainly not saturated China.
Right. Microsoft didn't have that big of a market to sell into. And Microsoft had a bubble price back then. Apple doesn't have a bubble price. It's priced about on par with the broad
amazing.
stock
Yeah,
market.
I mean, the thing I think that's interesting about it is you hear this too with Apple too. They keep saying, well, the law of large numbers has to kick in.
Yeah.
That once you reach a certain size, you can't keep growing at the your growth
for
rates
other
come
companies
down.
that have dominated their industries and dominated the stock market, eventually they just kind of level off or tail off.
It hasn't happened for Apple yet.
Whatever law there is, it didn't kick in last quarter. 73% sales growth. The sales growth has actually been accelerating. So, you know, people I talk to say, look, investors just aren't used to dealing with a company that's this large and growing this fast. So there's, you know, now there's 57 analysts who cover the stock. Only one analyst has a sell rating, so there are not a lot of negative opinions out there.
I love too that you interviewed the guy. You found him. He's like the Maytag repairman.
He says it's pretty lowly, but he's sticking to his guns. You know, one thing for investors to keep in mind, though, is, you know, Apple is 4%.
You can see we're looking at the 5-year chart there.
Okay, Apple's 4% of the S&P 500. It's 6% of the earnings, and it's almost all of the market's earnings surprise during this past quarter. So even if you're an investor who doesn't hold Apple shares and you're thinking about buying, you already have plenty of exposure to Apple. So, you know, I'd be careful for investors out there, you know, really going too heavily into this stock. If you're leaning in that direction, consider a tech fund because it's 20% of the S&P 500 tech sector.
Jack, does Apple have to continue showing these blowout numbers every quarter to sustain these kinds of gains? That's one part of the question. And also, do they have to have some amazing innovation each time? Meaning, not just a better iPad, not just a better iPhone that sells a little better, but every few years come out with something that's completely game-changing.
It depends how quickly you want them to get to $1,000 a share. I mean, everybody thinks there's going to be some mystery TV device. People are used to Apple not just doing well in the markets it already serves, but creating a new market every few years. And that's a big expectation. And to your question, yeah, you know, people, analysts say for them to please investors at this point, they have to absolutely clobber the numbers each quarter.
Yep.
That is hard to do. I know they've been doing it, but it's hard to do. All right, Jack Hough, thank you very much,
Thanks,
sir. Guys.